Here. All right, welcome everyone. I am Val Myers-Bitz. I am a child mental health counselor and owner of the Kids Therapy Center. I am excited to be here to talk about some of the things that we use when educating parents and helping them with some of those mood regulations and so forth.
There it is.
We're looking for
Forgot
the
what
correct-
tab I was on, sorry.
looking for the correct button, right?
Perfect. There we go.
Is it up in all of the things? Okay, perfect.
Okay. All right. So, and here is Amanda Lang. Amanda, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Amanda. I'm the clinical director here at the Kids Therapy Center. I've been here for eight years now. And before that for my internship and as well as my practicum. When we were putting together this slide, something that I think hit a little close to home for me is I have two toddlers at home, a 3 and a 5-year-old. So some of these slides were also like good reminders as a parent of like, this is when they're having their meltdown because it's still nice outside and the birds are still awake, like giving them some grace with that too. So
Right.
because that's been a nightly thing lately.
Yeah, it's a good reminder of a lot of things. I have two teenagers and a 21-year-old. So I actually just a little bit ago asked Amanda, can I like go to the pool with you this summer? Like I miss the littles age, right? I want to go swimming and all the fun things and whatever. But it's a lot of things that we talk about. It's knowing where their emotional stage is at in that regulation. And oftentimes as a parent, being able to regulate our own selves and whatnot. So today we are going to talk about understanding emotional regulation and dysregulation in children, co-regulation strategies, prevention, connection. We're huge on connection over correction. We do a child-parent relationship therapy in our clinic. So we use a lot of those tools. We're going to try to give you some real life examples and tools that we have used and we help parents use and we see that work. And just understanding that when we're working with parents or we are a parent, every child is different and we need a lot of tools. And so it's just understanding some of the basics uh, of what our choices are. I always say that if you're a parent that is got some choices to use, then you're not flying by the seat of your pants as a parent, right? So we're hoping that you can walk away with some actionable steps.
Why do all of these things matter? I think a big thing that I talk to a lot of the parents that I see their kids for therapy about is we as their parents, as their grown-ups, we can impact them quite a bit. We can walk in after a stressful day at work and our kids can literally smell that on you. That you're coming in overwhelmed, potentially overstimulated and their next moves sometimes are planned accordingly. I know like with my littles, I feel like they tend to ask more for like the candy and the gushers and those types of snacks if they know that I've had a hard day because they know it's only going to take 2 asks and I'm just going to cave. Versus when I've had an easier day at work or having a better day for myself, those boundaries tend to stay in place a little bit better. Our kiddos need us to be safe adults. And looping that back into Child Abuse Prevention Month and all of the things. Us as parents, us being able to be mindful of ourselves and being regulated, does help with our reactions to our kiddos. Anything else you want to share? Just so everybody's coming in on the same playing field, we wanted to go back and address some of the stuff with the brain. The upstairs brain versus downstairs brain. Your upstairs brain is when you're thinking. We talk to families quite a bit about this and schools too about their thinking brain and when they need to be fed, they need to have good sleep, those types of things in order to be mindful and be learning in the classroom. Where your downstairs brain is your survival brain. That's your fight or flight response. Your breathing, your heart rate, like your own regulating features. fear, anger, those types of emotions.
What I like about this is it really can give a picture of for a parent to be thinking about what is going on and where, and the things that are needed. Yeah.
Again, with just digging into a little bit more with upstairs brain versus your downstairs brain. Your brain has two main systems. Your upstairs brain is the thinking brain, like I had said before, and downstairs brain is your survival brain. Kids move between both of them quite frequently. Kids don't choose to be reactive with their emotions, but their brain state shifts based on their stress, or the inputs that they're currently going through. The remaining calm helps the upstairs brain continue to remain online, so they say, or so to say. So like being regulated, which we're going to dig into in the next few slides, helps them stay in that space of being able to think things through, and make better choices. Do you want to talk through the hand thing?
Yeah, you can.
Um, we teach this to, well, we teach this to parents, when we're talking through some of these things, with them. So you have, or the schools, sometimes if those of you that have kids, they'll talk about like flipping your lid. So when your brain is online, or you are thinking, you're doing your problem solving, you have good impulse control, you're empathetic, your upstairs brain is fully functioning, and fully online and present with you. Your downstairs brain, or when your lid is flipped, that is when you have more of a fight or flight response. You may freeze, shut down. That's where those tantrums come from, the meltdowns, and a lot of just expressing those big emotions, but not in ways that may be helpful for the grown-ups in their life.
So some of the things that happen during the meltdown is, the stress is overwhelming a child. That downstairs brain takes over, the upstairs brain goes offline, the logic does not work. And they don't understand typically. Consequences during this time don't typically teach. Connection becomes critical, and that's where we believe in connection over correction, which we'll get into. And then when we give that connection, we tend to get more regulation. And we need regulation to continue the cycle of them to regulate their feelings. So let's think about what a stress response looks like. We often think of the 4 Fs: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fight is that aggression, flight is avoidance, freeze, we shut down, fawn, people pleasing type things. Lots of these are automatic reactions. They're not intentional, and they're driven by safety of the person. And we tend to get to know, especially as a parent, what our children do for each thing, right? We again believe that when we go into these, that connection can be very powerful to help regulate them and bring them out. So one of the things that we often teach in the clinic is not to climb the ladder. So as escalation happens, kids go up the ladder. What happens? We tend to see parents follow right with them, because typically when one yells, the parent wants to yell louder, right? We think that when you're louder, or when you make the last comment, that you're the winner, right? The reality is whoever can regulate is the one that is doing well. So I always say, as the child goes up, I want you to keep yourself on the floor or the first step. Do not chase the child up the ladder. Because as this time, the child will have who has that connection with you, they'll raise up and they'll realize that you're still back down here, and they'll want to come back down to you because of that connection. So yes, sometimes it's hard to not scream and yell or whatever, but we need to be mindful that as the child goes up, if we stay grounded and regulated, They will come back down to us, and the tantrum and the meltdown will go away quicker. We're also teaching them how to do that, that when we're feeling big feelings, we can bring ourselves back down.
Why do kids have meltdowns? This slide is not all encompassing because it can be anything from you made them. I mean, just this week alone, I made them leave leaves outside and rocks outside, and the ants weren't allowed in the house. To like them truly being hungry, not having met needs. The fact that their brain is still developing, they're not thinking things through the way that we're thinking them through, regardless of how much we try to kind of talk them through what those next steps are going to look like. Sometimes they have hard time following along with that, or even being able to make those types of connections. Them themselves being overstimulated or having big emotions, and having very limited coping skills.
You know, I think of, so Amanda has littles and I have older kids, right? So mine are 18, 19, and 21. And even though they are young adults, their brains are still developing, right? So as we're getting into big feelings, right? Like somebody didn't show up for work on time, and so then they were late doing their job, right? So then we have these big feelings, and how do we de-escalate from that? So even my big kids, I'm teaching, you need to give yourself a break for a little bit because the feelings are strong right now. Your personality is you want to react, and we're not going to react. We're going to talk about this later, and we're going to think about it tomorrow before we react, because we have big feelings right now. By the next day, he didn't want to fire his brother, right? So it's like we have big feelings. And so even as now I'm just talking to them more as an adult, right? I'm using bigger words. I'm using words that you and I would use, but I'm teaching them about how feelings impact us and how do we regulate our feelings from that, right? I think hunger is the other big one. You can go ahead and change it. The hunger is the other big one. How do we feel when we're hungry, right? And this, I love the stress meter. We use this a lot, but I always tell people, I'm going to give you my example of the hunger one here, is behavior is a symptom. It's a form of communication. So anytime we see a behavior, if it's attention deficit, impulsivity, sadness, anger, nervousness, I look at that as a symptom of the body. Okay. So as a holistic counselor, I'm looking at also genetics, sleep, food, and stuff. But one of the examples I give is, what do you look like, or how do you feel? What are you thinking when you're hungry? When you're tired? So those basic things as a parent for littles, Amanda knows probably what her kids look like or feel like when they're over hungry or overtired. I know what my big kids look like and feel like when they're over hungry and overtired. And as they get bigger, I start to teach them that, right? And we can have bigger feelings as we're overflowing. So we want to look beneath the behavior and think of it as a symptom of what is going on. Are their needs being met? Are there, I think of the kids' lack of language. They have the feeling, especially at your age, but they don't have the words yet. And that wouldn't be normal for them to have the words. And even if we start to teach, we can start to teach the kids at a young age, but they don't always have the correct words yet. So it's up to us adults to interpret those signals, and respond with that curiosity. Where is this symptom coming from? So just that reframing that thinking that behavior is a symptom. So when we overflow, we get a dysregulated brain. So remember, we're offline. We have to learn about certain stops that we need. We need to be listening tends to help decrease symptoms and behaviors. Emotions can take control in this time, and that connection is needed. So when we see that dysregulation, we want to help with some connection to help be able to regulate and give them choices of what to do next. But we need to stay calm and not climb the ladder with them.
And I think that's an important part too when we are overstimulated. It's hard for us to also be rational at times.
Mhm.
And so for us being mindful of where are we at, on a couple previous slide or 2 slides ago, the little stress meter, like how full is my cup? There are days where, like I had used the example before, them getting into the candy and the fruit snacks a lot earlier than I would like them to in the evening time. But sometimes like that, I can't handle another meltdown. I just need a little bit of a break and me opening up that sucker for them, and that gives them something to do and while they color and sit at the table, so that I have time to quietly cook dinner. Just being mindful of like what you need as a parent too, because without you being grounded, and staying on the
Mhm.
ground while they're climbing their ladder, this regulation and co-regulation can't happen. So what is regulation? The return to the calm state. When you are regulated, your emotions, you have them in check. You're able to be in control of your impulses. You're easily able to adapt to stress. You're able to identify and utilize your coping skills. And you're just all over, like overall, a lot more balanced. And grounded, I
Mhm.
guess, would be the best way to word it. So what are the signs of dysregulation? They look different for everybody, but for the littles, it's the tantrums, it's the meltdowns, it's the crying, it's the screaming. They seem to be inconsolable, and it doesn't matter what you do, they're just gonna kick and scream. For some kiddos, the aggression, they're trying to hit, they're throwing things, they're ripping up paper, they're tipping desks over. For other kiddos, they will shut down, kind of isolate. I am graced to have one of each of those. I have one that will kick and scream in the middle of the living room and wants everybody to see her, and I have one that will find a corner and will just sit there and cry. So you have to be able to adapt to all of those as well. The defiance, sometimes it's just anxiety, not wanting to do something, but not knowing how to articulate that to my grown up. The hyperactivity and, again, like the shutting down, similar to what the withdrawal.
Yeah, and I think of for my big kids, you know, we don't have a whole lot of anger outbursts, you could say. We don't have defiance, thankfully. But I will see that anxiety, big feelings, maybe some crying, stuff like that, right? I would say, and I would say anxiety is probably the big one that we would see in our family if things are not going well, their stress meters overflowing or whatnot. What can we do? I have a couple in college now, and those finals and those tests, we're seeing more and more anxiety and stress than we have before because college is a little bit harder than high school for them, which it should be. And just, I have kids that are very concerned about their grades and their future. And so it's, even though I can say to them, this class isn't going to mean anything in 5 years from now, but it's just always teaching them those things. We're not failing, we're still have a B in the class, right? Things like that. But because of some of that perfectionist thinking, you have to walk through with them, because they are more dysregulated. And then what's happening? They're not sleeping well, right? And they wake up in the morning, and my one kid had big bags under his eyes, and I'm like, "How are you today?" Right? I can see by looking at him that he's not doing well. Fine. Yeah. Okay. How boys are, right? So it's just talking it through, right? Are we more stressed right now? Maybe take some extra bliss, right? Take some B vitamin because we're holistic. So take some B vitamins. Let's move on here. Um, yeah, and so then the parents' nervous system, of course, we set the tone. I always think about when the child falls down, how do we pick them up and be like, nope, we're okay. Making sure, yep, okay, we got an owie, we got to put a band-aid on that, clean you up, but we're okay to go play again, right? And so we have to be modeling what is correct and what is not. As our feelings are hurt, it's okay to recognize that their feelings are hurt. We're sad today because we want to be starting to identify those feelings as well. And remember how we set the tone, emotions are contagious. If you're angry about something or you're mad about something, so will the kids be. So let's try to regulate ourselves. Kids mirror adults. Calm creates calm. Stress escalates stress. And being aware of ourselves is key as a parent. So remember to regulate yourself first, and then we can help regulate the child. Co-regulation. This is when adults try to help calm the child. We co-regulate as adults together as well. It requires us to be present. It requires us to be patient, and we do tend to build that safety net, right? Amanda's trained in circle of security, so it's pretty fun to see as your children age. They go away and they check back at you, right? Like, I want to do this. I'm getting a
Look
little bit
for my
anxious.
hands. Baby, you got
But how are you? Thank you. Um, but so they go away and they're getting a little bit anxious because it's new for them to go that far away, and they come back and they look at you, right? Like, am I going to do this? If you're anxious, they're going to start to get dysregulated, right? So you're also that safety for when teaching these new things and these new skills, right? So remember, we're that foundation for self-regulation. So some examples of co-regulation, we use a calm voice. Our tone of voice tells a lot, right? We have slow movements, that eye contact. We might have a smile on our face. I always tell people that, especially with like littles, that it's like they can feel your heart racing, right? And so take some deep breaths yourself, and have that moment with them. So in some infant mental health stuff that we do is you can take a young child, and I've done it with older children too. You make that eye contact, we're okay. What do we do with littles? We right away, we might put them against our heart, we're patting them, we're swaying so nicely, right? So just you can just feel the calmness within the environment that helps them be okay, right? And I bet you do that with yours yet too, because they're still little, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, like I said, when I was going through this PowerPoint, like literally earlier this week, my 3-year-old, when she was a baby and I couldn't regulate her because we were beyond tired. She's been fed, she's been changed. I've tried all of the things. I know that she's tired, but she doesn't want to fall asleep because she might miss something. I would like open the windows or like walk out onto the deck with her, because that cold air would kind of like help re-regulate her. When I tell you on Monday night, I tried everything. We walked on the deck. I put her in her room by herself. I sat in her room with her. And what ended up like helping her fall asleep is me just holding her like a baby. And I just rocked her back and forth. And I did my deep breathing because this is 20 minutes of this meltdown that has now been happening. And I could just like, she didn't want to sleep because, like I said earlier, it's a big thing at our house. If the sun is awake, they are awake. And the birds are also awake now, so they're chirping and we have the windows open. So if the birds are talking, I get to be talking. That's not how this works. And so, but I could just feel her melt into me as I'm sitting there and just breathing. And over time, as I'm doing that, once I've felt calm, then making that eye contact with her. And then she just, like I said, just melted. Her body was able to calm down. All of a sudden, like then her breathing was following my breathing, and her chest was rising a lot further than it was before because it was like those short, shallow breaths that they take because it's in between screams. And now she was like laying there, she was quiet, she was finally like, I could feel her body relax. And then I just laid on her bedroom floor with her for a little while. And then I got the one-armed hug, I love you, mom. I'm ready for bed now. And then she climbs into her bed. I'm like, okay, great. Now that we're half an hour into this, but we're finally where I wanted us to be at.
Yeah, and I think of, as I hear that, all the things you're teaching her, right? Like you are modeling with her how to calm, and that sometimes we just need to be sad and we just need to be like, okay, I just need to take some deep breaths and I need to move on. Now I feel better and my mind's not thinking that way and I can go to bed. I think of that also for my big kids. I had my 21-year-old doesn't live with me anymore. And the other day I was getting ready and I came out of the bathroom and there she is. And it's like, nope, I'm just not feeling well, mom. But what does she do? She comes to that regulation, right? When something's going on in their life, even my staff know all of a sudden there might be a child at the clinic or adult child at the clinic because there could be something that they need and they just need that regulation, right? And they're so close with the staff that they might not even get it from me, they might get it from somebody else, but they know what to do now with that. But yeah, it's super fun.
So why might consequences or punishments fail? A lot of this comes from like when we are trying to consequence out of when we are dysregulated, as well as them being dysregulated. I see a lot of parents that are I don't want to say that they go to the extreme, but sometimes that's what it feels like. So you might be on your phone way late and now I'm disconnecting your phone line. You're getting your phone taken away. You have no electronics ever. Um, when they come back down and they are regulated again, they can have more of a conversation of like, this is what my expectations are for you. Sometimes those types of consequences, those can increase fear. They raise the stress hormones in your body. When we are consequencing out of emotion, it makes our children's brains shut down. It can damage the connection that we have with our kids. We're not taking the time to teach. We're just there to consequence and kind of throw the book at them, which then can at times escalate the behavior. And really only turns into a short-term compliance where when you're able to sit down with your kids and teach them, that's where that long-term compliance comes from.
Mhm. One of the things that, as we're talking about this, that I think of is that we make people feel how we feel. And that's a common thing that we see in our families and in our children and whatnot. So when we're feeling like things are hard, that we want them to be, we want them to have a hard time too, right? And so we don't want to be doing that as a parent. So this is where we think of that connection before correction, building that relationship first. The child parent relationship therapy model is based on a half an hour a week of one-on-one time can help regulate a child and pull them out of hard times. We see that over and over and over again. It used to be like, especially when I was seeing more patients, that when somebody would come to me and it seemed like they were coming from a fairly healthy home, they had a child that was dysregulated often, and they're like, we need to do something. Some of the first things I taught the parent was how to regulate with their child and do these half an hour fun play days a week to start regulating their emotions. It starts to build that relationship at a deeper level. The child feels safe, and when we have that, then we can start teaching them, right? We want to be a listener. Lots of times people react and want to say things, but we need to listen and validate the feelings. We're feeling sad today. We're having a hard time right now. It's confusing. And then a lot of times with kids, they don't know what to do. So we can help guide that behavior. And because they have that trust and bond with us, then they will listen to us, right? These are our choices with this. This is what we can do, right? And it's okay to feel sad right now. But this is what we need to do next, especially like when Amanda's trying to put a child to bed or whatnot, right? Me at my age, I'm like, you don't want to go to bed? Okay, have fun. I'm going to bed. And if you're late for school tomorrow or whatnot, then we have other issues, right? But at 18 and 19 and 21, I'm not going to be, that's out of my league now, right? But it really helps. These steps really help with that connection.
So next we're gonna go over some tools that we can utilize as well as that we can teach the families that we work with. The first one is just pausing. Take a second reflect on where you're at, take a deep breath before you're responding to whatever's happening. This kind of goes back to what Val had talked about earlier with not climbing the ladder. Just take that step back and take a deep breath. You don't have to always have an answer right then and there. It is okay to take a minute. And I like to talk to parents a little bit about like timeout during this time too. The way that, like Val had said, I am trained in Circle of Security, and the way that Circle of Security looks at timeouts is breaks for parents to re-regulate ourselves so that we can come back and respond appropriately to the situation. So if my girls are fighting and I send them to their room for a little bit, it's for me to kind of navigate and resort out how I'm feeling and going to respond to the situation, so then I can go back and sit with them in their room and have those further discussions with them. And kind of talk about like what expectations are once they leave their bedroom. And being intentional with how you choose to respond. Those last 3 bullet points of like choose intentional action, reduce the escalation, and model for your kids that you can be in control of yourself and your emotions.
Yeah, I love that. So the next tool is naming the feeling. I think of this as when we can label and validate, normalize, we can reduce that intensity. Okay. We allow them to build vocabulary, and whatnot. But I look at when we can't name the feeling, basically our brain is all disorganized. And if we don't know the name, it stays disorganized. But when we can start to put the name to things, it starts to cause organization. Okay. And especially at that like 4, 5, 6 years of age, we do a lot of naming the feeling more and more, and we tend to see behaviors start to regulate better because it's like, oh yeah, that's what it is. Okay, that's the name of this feeling, and there's kind of this relief, right? That I just got to name it, and then you get some of that organization in it.
I kind of have a funny story with that. So I start to do that with the kids as
Yeah,
even as babies, because I'm a therapist by nature. So you can definitely tell that my kids are therapists' kids. And I think she was like 3 at the time, my now 5-year-old. We have a little like nook area in our kitchen, and she had climbed under the table and kind of put these boxes in front of her. And I was like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm just feeling so frustrated. And I was like, you're feeling frustrated. What's going on? And she's like, my sister's not listening to me. This is happening. This is happening. You're not letting me do this. And I'm just really frustrated. And like, I kind of laughed, like not at her, but like you at 3 years old are identifying like exactly how you're feeling. And there's grown-ups that can't do that. And you're able to do that as so little. And now, I mean, her feelings vocabulary has grown, and now we have more than happy, sad, mad, and frustrated. It's tired and hungry, and just
Yeah.
continues to grow more and more. But it is pretty cute once they start
is
to use that, especially when the littles do it.
Mm-hmm.
Another tool is body regulation, doing deep breathing, taking movement breaks, using different sensory things. For some of the kiddos in OT, they end up getting like sensory diet type things. So like the brushing, the joint compressions, those types of things. Grounding. I talk to families now that it's getting nicer out and hopefully stays nice out, them going outside, going walks in the grass with no shoes on. Stretching, making some calm down spaces, and taking a physical reset.
Yeah, I think the underneath, we know that body regulation can help get rid of, we can release feelings and whatnot, but to know also when we're moving, our neurotransmitters produce differently. And so then our feelings start to produce differently. So there's so much more going on with movement than just kind of that release, right? And I think that's something to be mindful as a parent, as we have all of our different kids needing different things. All right, so looking at another tool, the repair. So one of the things that we teach is that as a parent, we need to model also going back and acknowledging the mistake, apologizing sincerely, modeling accountability, rebuilding trust with them or someone else. And really, this is just a huge teaching moment. Um, it can be from, if we climb the ladder with them, yep, I shouldn't have raised my voice like that. I shouldn't have, and just saying that stuff, right? And what is happening when we start to open that door of talking about our mistakes is we're letting them know that we make mistakes too, and we can fix, this is how we fix things. And this might happen at your house, Amanda, now, but when my kids were little and I would do this, they were more open to say to me, "Mommy, that's too loud." Right? It's like they're telling me, okay, no, you don't talk like that, right? Because that's too hard. So it was pretty cute how they started to, like, they were so used to me, like, you need to say sorry for how loud your voice got, mommy, right? Uh, and so it can be pretty cute as you're teaching the skills to them. Uh yeah, fun stuff.
Another tool is structure. It's easier for kids to fall into a routine, if that routine is predictable. If we as parents are laying out clear expectations and we're consistent with those expectations, having firm boundaries so that kids know what that expectation is. When I talk to families about boundaries, I we all likely know a kiddo that really likes to push the boundaries. And once they know what that boundary is, they want to toe that line and try to see if I can move that line just a little bit. And it doesn't matter. Sometimes it feels like it doesn't matter how consistent you are with that boundary. They're always trying to push it. So I talk to families a lot about like what your hard lines are. An example that I use with my kids is I would ideally like my family to sit at the dinner table and eat dinner. But there are times where they just want that sense of control and they want to push the limit. And so we have like a dining room table, and then my little girls, they have like a little art table. And sometimes they'll take their stuff and they're like, I don't want to sit by so and so at the table, so I'm going to eat over here by myself, but I'm going to eat quietly. And then all of a sudden, like sometimes they're like, well, I don't want to sit at that table. I want to sit on the floor. But my hard line with food and drinks at my house is nothing leaves the tile. So like we have a little threshold where it's like laminate on one side, and that's where our living room area is, and our kitchen dining is all tile. And so they know that they can't leave with snacks, drinks, none of that off of the tile. And so I've had where my 5-year-old, when she still pushes boundaries, but when she was like 3, terrible threes, she would sit with her food and drink in her lap with her butt on the tile, but her legs and feet were over on the hardwood floor. And I just let her be, because my hard boundary, my firm line was food and drink stays on the tile. But she put her feet on the other side on purpose because she wanted me to engage in that, because just like Val had said earlier, like people make us feel how they're feeling. And so if she was feeling frustrated or whatever feeling she was having that day, that's what she was doing, is just trying to push the boundary. And she sat there and ate. It was a Saturday and it was a snack of some sort, but she kept her butt and her food and her drink all on that tile floor, but the rest of her body, or as much of her body as she humanly could, was on the hardwood.
That reminds me of when my daughter was little and we had a timeout chair, which was an adult sized chair, and she had to stay on the chair for her, or she's supposed to stay on the chair for her minute for every age, da 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 da, whatever, right? And what does she do? She goes under the chair and sits. I could have been like, no, you're on the chair, right? And I did have my partner at the time was like, no, she's supposed to be on the chair. And I'm like, okay, what is the purpose of timeout? To calm down, to regulate, that we're taking some of her time away from her to teach a lesson, right? I don't care if she's sitting on the chair or under the chair. But it was a prime example of, for me, I'm like, I don't care where she is, as long as she's not doing whatever. But it was so black, for my, or it was her dad at the time, it was, no, she should be on the chair, right? And it's like, so she was definitely testing that boundary, but she sat underneath the chair for minutes and then came out and was good to go, right? But yeah, those kids are so funny. uh All right, so we've been talking a lot about things of ways we can teach children and teaching them the skills, right? So emotional vocabulary is probably the biggest thing that we can do when they start to be, that 3, 4, 5 years of age, like Amanda said, is when you're in the helping profession, like a lot of us, we just start to label feelings all the time. It's just how we talk, right? Um, One of the other things that I like to do is, be practicing those coping skills and those problem solving skills. So I do a lot of what I say thinking aloud, right? As I'm processing something, I start to tell them that, what I'm doing. Teaching skills around impulse control and self-awareness, and then be practicing with them as we move on.
The next two things are a couple things that for parents to be mindful of, or different things that they can do to help their kiddos. The calm down corners or calm down spaces. A lot of if you have school age kids, a lot of classrooms have these already built in, or the kids know where those are located in the school. Them having a safe, quiet space. Trying when we can to kind of set up like what does this look like at our homes too? Is there calm down space, is that in their bedroom, or do they have a tent that's set up in the living room or in a like a family room that nobody's really using or down in the basement? These spaces are not used as punishment. Kids usually have access to different sensory tools or different comfort items. um, Giving them some visuals. We talk at the clinic a lot about like the five senses, so different things that maybe they have something that has like a little smelly thing in it, things that they can touch, something for them to look at, trying to have something there for each one of those five senses. Um, these spaces are to be used proactively, so not during the meltdown. These are trying to help them identify some of these things so that they're using them before they're reaching that point, or like Val had talked about earlier, where they're overflowing, and helps teach them some independence. The next one is again another parenting thing. Trying as a parent, like trying to plan ahead as much as we can. I have in my center console of my car 4 packs of snacks at all given times, and I have 2 of each, because if one wants the goldfish, the other one also tends to want the goldfish. But if one wants the muffins, the other one also wants the muffins, so I need to have 2. So replenishing my snacks, so when I can tell that they're starting to get hungry, having that so I can try to help prevent any meltdowns from hunger anyway.
Mhm.
Talking out loud of like what your expectations are, can kind of help reduce that chaos and gives them some predictability, as well as like talking through what you're doing. We talking through what you're doing and talking through your emotions of like, oh, I'm feeling really overwhelmed trying to pack all of this stuff into the car. Or the kids can kind of see you getting frustrated because the school, all of the construction that's going on, and now it's impacting with the flow of traffic getting kids to school. Like talking through and identifying some of those things too, of like, I'm feeling a little stressed this morning because we left a little bit late, or I'm feeling overwhelmed. Those types of things. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all really good. You can kind of change it. I think that talking ahead and talking aloud is very helpful so they can understand what are some things that we can think about as we're doing this. I think of like from little on up, those are some very same techniques that I still use with my adult children now, right? From washing dishes together that, yeah, we're gonna, we actually, we had a dishwasher, but we still wash dishes together at the sink because of all the skill that it gives. When we go to the grocery store, we don't use our phones at the grocery store because we're walking through and talking about all the things that we need to know as we're going to the grocery store. And what's really interesting is more and more research is coming out how phones are impacting and technology is impacting some of these developmental skills that they need. And I really think it can be that I need a break or they're quiet at the grocery store while we do this. But no, that time is also for us to be talking and communicating and teaching of how to make it through the grocery store, how to do these things.
I can touch on this one.
Okay, well, yeah. So trauma and regulation, remember trauma impacts brain development. It increases sensitivity. There can be other triggers. Remember, typically trauma is touched by our senses. Uh, there can be more survival responses and trust challenges, that need for safety and extra need for patience as their body begins to regulate and heal. And those are things that we teach our families within the clinic. Amanda talked about this a little bit ago, but our adult triggers, knowing our adult triggers and how do we take care of ourselves so that we're not feeling overwhelmed at that time too, right? How do we get our breaks? How can we take care of our things? I remember when at one point I was a single parent, I remember thinking, this is not forever. I'm going to be overwhelmed right now in this stage of life. And when they go to daycare and I go to work, I in my head thought that is my break. And then at times my family stepped in and helped with the kids. But it's like it's always just processing um what is my fatigue and what can I do and the mindset around what my choices are. And I'm not stuck and this won't last forever was probably a lot of my thinking at the time. Self-regulation for adults, have a pause, take some breaths, some grounding. You see a lot of these are related, same as the child, right? I think we have to sometimes to tell ourselves it's okay to take breaks, especially all of us mothers or fathers that are parenting and working full time, running kids and whatnot, and we just do so much. We have careers and whatnot. We need to take breaks and be like, it is okay to go and do this. It is okay to go be with your friends. It is okay to go sit at the park and just be in the sun without children or whatever. And reminding yourself it's okay to do those things to self-regulate.
Protective factors, some things to be mindful of, like relying on some of those relationships, just like Val was talking about, being able to take your breaks, relying on family to help out when they need to, creating a safe environment, um, your own emotional skills, having good support systems, being consistent. I think that that's a big thing, as the consistency and connection are a couple big things when it comes to the parenting piece. The consistency so that everybody kind of knows the routine and you have something to kind of fall back on. And I think the more you have those routines, it gives a lot of time, just like Val was talking about, for the connection. Our Costco run is usually Saturday afternoons after nap time, close to lunch, or sometimes around lunch, because then they get a hot dog and then they walk the store. So I get the first half where they're sitting in the cart because they're eating their snack, and then I get the second half where I'm doing that connection piece. But hopefully by then I have most of my list already also located in the cart. And just building all of those skills for resilience.
We understand there's a lot of barriers, from time constraints, other stressors, lack of support, limited knowledge, burnout, inconsistency, and overwhelming. I think the biggest one that we hear is that time constraint or the lack of support. And I always remind people that research shows us that a half an hour a week of connection or one-on-one time with their child can do a lot. can do a lot. It can regulate, it can do lots of things. So to start there, and maybe that is 2 15-minute breaks that we just be with our child. We just play whatever they want to play. This half an hour time is not going shopping. Well, unless you're using it as a time, but it's not, they're not going to get the latest Barbie or Nerf gun, right? That is your time with them to play and just be present. So, but we do understand there are barriers, and to just know that sometimes it might not happen this week, but let's do it next week. It's okay. Overcoming those barriers, remember to take small steps. Consistency, re-looking at your support systems. As parents, we're always educating. Even myself, I love learning about parenting stuff and child development. Yes, I know that I have a passion for we have passions for kids, right? So that's what we do. But as just even as a parent, the more and more I learn how to be a better mom is very rewarding, because I just have more choices and more options, but also be taking care of yourself and some of those realistic goals for this. Yeah, and then practice. All right, so we hope that we got through a lot of things today on regulating us adults, helps regulate our kids. Kids need that safety and that trust. Remember to use skills over punishment. Connection first. Connection first. Small changes help. Consistency wins, and you can make a difference in all of our parenting and all of our children's mental health. And the last slide, we have a Kids Therapy Training Institute that we'd like you to be a part of. You can go to the training website, tktctraining.com, and join our newsletter there and get all the events we have up. We have a variety of on-demand courses already. We are working through the NBCC and other national organizations that all of our trainings will be CEU certified. Right now, some of them are and some of them not. Amanda has some on there. She has the high conflict court cases and stuff like that. We do have working with parents and sexuality, and we have other ones coming. We do also offer live and virtual conferences this June 12th and 13th. We have our holistic mental health conference will be in Mandan, North Dakota, or online. There is a certification for a holistic mental health that we offer. This course is the first 2 days. So we will offer the third day virtually so people can complete that if they want. If you are interested in that, we do have a coupon code here for you to get 10% off, which is $50 for that. Remember, it is in person or virtually. And that conference has been approved by 6 or 7 CEU boards already. So it is ready for all of that. All right, so we have like 5 minutes left. If there's any questions or anything you're wondering, we are happy to be here to chat about whatever you would like.
Do you want to stop sharing?
Yeah.
Thank you both so much. One of the questions in the chat box from Chelsea was, do you have articles or book recommendations for parents who are more into like the research behind it all and want some of those materials to just review and read?
Yes, so we talked a little bit about, circle of security is one of the parenting attachment type things. With connection over correction, the child parent relationship therapy, that is a play therapy based model. There is a whole curriculum around it. There's books on it, and it does give you that research of a lot of things that we talked about today are probably right in that book in the research, because we did pull a lot from that, right? Siegel's child development type stuff, he has a variety of books out too that you can get some of his research from. Trauma and the senses and whatnot, we pulled that from TFCBT. Again, there's books and research out about that. There's a variety of things, because obviously, because of what we do, and we've been doing this for so many years, we pulled out the top things that we use over and over again within practice.
I tried to pull it up on my phone. There was a book that I listened to that I really appreciated because the mom is a social worker, but she wrote it from the perspective also as a mom. And there was like a few touches of swearing, which like makes me feel like she's a real parent because she was like expressing it the way that I would probably be talking about it with my friends. But I can get that to you, Lindsay, a few of those books and you can share it out with everybody.
That sounds great. Thank you. I haven't seen any other questions, I don't think. Let me just look. Lots of thank yous. Thank you. Great information. Thanks for sharing everything. Um, and then we did put just the brief link to get a certificate in the chat box. And then the next week is our final session for the virtual series too. So thank you guys so much. It was wonderful. I appreciate you both so much. And thank you everybody for tuning in. I don't see any other questions, just lots of thank yous.
Thank you so much for having us. We've really had a great time. Have a great day.
Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.